I remember my first trip to Heartland Children's Home, which was over 20 years ago. Mike and Ruth, who are the owners and the leaders, they had a daughter, Amy, who gave birth to a little boy named Timmy. Unexpectedly, Amy died. And Mike and Ruth have a connection to a family in our church. Now, Mike is a non-practicing Jew, and Ruth is a non-practicing Catholic. So you add those two together and divide by 2, and you come up with an All Saints Lutheran. So they called me and asked if I would come down and do Amy's funeral, which I did. It was an invitation and a decision that changed my life. Little did I know that I'd end up adopting one of the kids that lived there, and that more than 20 years later, we'd still be taking a group from our church to go to Heartland. If you've been here the last couple of Sundays, you may remember that I'm trying to prove to you that I'm Lutheran. And it's painfully obvious I'm not doing a very good job. But I do know this. Being Lutheran is about being open to God's grace and goodness. That being Lutheran is about God's gracious and acceptance and unconditional acceptance of you and me, and the invitation for us to be able to accept ourselves. So the past couple of weeks I've talked about the Trinity, which in religious language means God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. That somehow God comes to us in many different ways. And oftentimes life does come to us in threes. For me last week it was Walt Ledigar and Walt Schillinger and a young man named Josh. And after those 3 visits, I was reminded how majestic and how fragile life can be all at the same time. And then there was a lesson about giving and receiving, and the third thing was making sure you say thank you. Then there was going to Heartland, coming back from Heartland, but the third thing is you got to live in the spirit of Heartland when you get back. And so we get to Heartland this year, and there's some new kids there, but there's also some kids that have been there forever. Crystal is now 32 years old. Been there since she was 3. Johnny is 14. Little Timmy, whose mom died and got the whole thing started, he just turned 20. And then there's the new kid on the block, and her name is Lizzie. She's 15 years old, just got there, and her body just doesn't work right. She might be 50 pounds. And someday her body's going to quit working, and they're going to have to say goodbye forever. But the look in her eyes, the look at her smile, when you say hi to her and she whispers as loud as she can, "How are you doing today?" She plays cards with determination and hates to lose. And in the quiet silence of her fragile state, she dares you to believe in God. She invites you by her very presence to be a better person. She helps you believe, despite what she's going through, in life's goodness and grace. One night it's late because after 8 o'clock we're supposed to shut down the house and kind of make it quiet for all the kids. And I hear all this laughing and hanging on, and I go downstairs to get mad at our kids, and there they are all around the dining room table playing Uno with Lizzie. And I apologized to the nurse. I said, "I'm sorry about the noise." She said, "Wait a second. We don't have Lizzie for a whole lot longer. This is her party. Why don't you just butt out?" And I said, "Thank you." The very first day we get there, we go into each one of the rooms. And that's where the so-called babies are. The ones that are mostly in their cribs and once in a while get into a wheelchair. And I went into one room by myself, and there's a pretty big girl who pretty much fills the crib. And she doesn't move at all. I just look at her, and I touch her. And I ask the nurse, "What is her name?" And believe it or not, her name is Trinity. And I'm standing by her bedside thinking of the threes, thinking of God the Father and God the Son and God the Holy Spirit. Trinity just lies there, and she looks at you, and you wonder, what does she see? She can't move in her bed, but just by being there, she moves you to tears. She can't speak at all, but her voice is loud and clear. 6 years old, and this is her life. How could somebody who's supposed to love her and raise her abuse her and give her a life like this? And yet, in the silence of her own soul, she speaks to us. You know, in the airport, our plane is delayed. It's easy to get frustrated, and then I say, my gosh, for Trinity, her whole life is delayed. When I get back home, am I going to be in a hurry again because I got church tomorrow? I mean, Trinity only wishes for one day that she could be in a hurry. The bike rides and the proms and the homework and the jumping in the pool and going to church, she'll never know what any of that stuff is. But somehow, I know she's going to be watching me, and maybe you too. She'll say, Don, have you learned anything after meeting me? Don, will you carry me inside your heart when you go home? Don, you're not going to forget me, are you? 3 questions from a girl named Trinity. And you know, Trinity and Lizzie, you didn't ask for this. And you don't deserve this. And there will be a day in the kingdom that is to come where you will walk tall. And every one of your dreams will be able to come true. Later that night, the kids from our church, we always gather for a little discussion. And we have communion. And I know some of the kids are worried about getting into college. And others are kind of sweating about their SAT score and their ACT score. Some are worried about their class rank and the competition to make the team or to be in the orchestra. And I try to tell them, because I'm old, that 10 years from now, that ain't going to make any difference at all. The only thing that's going to matter 5 or 10 years from now is the content of your character and the spirit with which you do the tasks you are called to do. And I asked each one of the kids, I said, I want you to share something that makes you unique. Share a gift that you have that is different than your colleagues, different than anybody else, or you can help make the world a better place. And I said, think of the people you've seen today. We had a nice dinner last night, and those 2 servers in that restaurant made you feel like the most important people in the world. Look at the nurses around you and the way they take care of their kids. How about the baker in town who makes the cinnamon rolls that I bought you every single morning? All those people have a purpose. All those people have a calling, a purpose, just a reason to get up in the morning. And so my thoughts once again turn to Trinity. No school, no degree, no tests. 6 years old in hospice care in a world that can be cruel and unfair. And yet in some crazy way, she teaches us what's important and what's not. And she gave me some homework as I got home, and you too. She said, don't sweat the small stuff, Don. Spend your time on what really counts in life. Trinity, thank you, and for a 3rd time, thank you. That's the Trinity that really counts. Amen. If you're able to, please rise for the creed. It's on page 105.